It was the kind of day that felt heavy in the air. A day when nothing seemed to go right, yet everything had to be done. Maria stepped out of her small apartment, the city skyline rising like a steel giant in the distance, its shine blinding against the morning sun. She was already late, and with her mother's worsening condition, time was becoming a luxury she didn't have. Maria had always been a quiet force, a mechanical engineer at Tesla with a sharp mind and an unwavering work ethic. But behind her calm exterior, there was a different story. A story of sacrifice, unseen struggles, and a fight for survival. Her mother, Elena, had been diagnosed with a terminal illness months ago. While doctors threw out technical terms and half-hearted promises, Maria found herself shouldering both the emotional and financial burden of her family's survival. She couldn't afford to take time off from her job, not with the medical bills piling up and her mother's care growing more complex by the day. So despite the exhaustion and the constant worry gnawing at her, Maria still got up every morning, strapped her tools on, and walked into Tesla's state-of-the-art factory. She was determined, even if her body betrayed her. At Tesla's headquarters, Elon Musk sat in his sleek, glass-walled office overlooking the city. He was known as the visionary, the genius who made electric cars mainstream and pushed the limits of what was possible. But there was a coldness in his eyes today. Something was missing. Elon had built an empire. But somewhere along the way he'd lost sight of the people who made it all possible. Tesla's employees were driven, they were the heart of the company. But in the relentless pursuit of progress, many of them were burning out. Maria was one of them. Elon didn't know much about Maria, but he had seen her around. She was one of those faces that blended into the background, always working, never asking for anything. But something about her relentless dedication caught his attention. It wasn't until a routine meeting about employee health benefits that the story of Maria and her mother became something more than just a statistic on a report. It was an ordinary Thursday when Maria received a call from Elena's doctor. The voice on the other end was clinical, distant. "Your mother's condition has worsened. You need to come in as soon as possible." Maria's heart sank, but there was no time to dwell on it. She couldn't afford to lose another day. Her mother needed her, but her work needed her too. Tesla didn't give breaks. Not unless you had something to prove. So she pushed her fears aside, threw on her lab coat and drove to work. That afternoon something unexpected happened. Elon Musk, the billionaire founder of Tesla, took an impromptu walk through the factory floor. It wasn't a routine inspection, nor was it a PR stunt. He was there for something deeper. Something had been eating at him. He had heard too many whispers about burnout, about people working themselves into the ground. About employees like Maria who seemed to disappear into the machine they had helped build. Elon's eyes caught sight of Maria, hunched over her workbench, soldering small circuits with the kind of precision that could only come from years of practice. But there was something in her posture, a weariness he hadn't noticed before. He approached her, his footsteps echoing across the cold concrete. "Maria, right?" His voice was neutral, but his eyes were sharp. Maria stood up, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. She had never expected the CEO himself to speak to her, let alone approach her on the factory floor. She was just another engineer, another cog in the machine. But there was something in Elon's demeanor that made her pause. "Yes, Mr. Musk," she replied, trying to steady her nerves. "I've been hearing a lot about your work," Elon said, his eyes scanning the factory around them. "You've been putting in long hours. You ever think about taking a break?" Maria laughed, though it sounded hollow. "I don't really have time for breaks. My mother, she's sick. I need the money to keep things going." Elon's face softened for a moment, but it quickly turned to something more focused. "I know the pressure here is high, but sometimes we need to take care of ourselves to keep going. You and your colleagues, what do you need? What can we do to help?" Maria wasn't sure how to respond. No one had ever asked her that. "Not really. We just need to be able to get by," she said quietly. "We're working as hard as we can. But when it's all about the next big thing, sometimes we forget what's really at stake." It was then that something inside Elon clicked. It wasn't just Maria's words that struck him. It was the reflection of all his employees, working day after day, sacrificing everything for the dream of a better world, and yet not taking care of the people who made that world possible. That night, Elon lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought about his own journey, about the countless sleepless nights, the battles, the triumphs. But in that moment he realized that he had become so obsessed with building the future that he had forgotten the importance of the people who were building it with him. He called an emergency meeting the next morning. The following week, Tesla announced a revolutionary change in its health and welfare policies. For the first time, Tesla would be offering its employees comprehensive healthcare benefits, paid time off for mental health, and a new set of wellness initiatives that focused not just on physical health but emotional well-being as well. The company also introduced flexible work hours to help workers balance their demanding lives outside the factory. Maria was the first to hear the news. She had just returned from her mother's appointment, her heart still heavy with worry. But when she walked into the break room, she saw a group of her co-workers gathered around their phones, reading the email from the company. The new policies, the ones that Elon had fought so hard to implement, were a game changer. Employees, especially those like Maria, could now take the time they needed without fearing for their livelihoods. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. A start that could change everything. Maria's heart raced as she read the message. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of relief. Like maybe, just maybe, the weight of the world on her shoulders was finally starting to lift. Elon had taken a chance, but it was more than just a chance. It was a turning point. In a world where progress often came at the cost of people, Elon had chosen to prioritize his employees, recognizing that real change started with caring for those who made it all happen. And for Maria, it was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where, for the first time, she could breathe, knowing that the company she had helped build would be there for her when she needed it most.